Hey, so I wanted to talk about the overturning of Proposition 8 in California. If you live in a hole or in the mountains somewhere, you may not know, but Proposition 8 was overturned by a judge a couple days ago in California. Proposition 8 was, of course, the ruling saying that gays could not be legally married in the state of California. That has now been overturned. A long road to go still. There's probably going to be, it'll probably reach the Court of Appeals and probably go up to the Supreme Court, which we'll get into a little bit later. Um, I want to go back to something I think I've posed in other videos before, but a lot of the arguments that are coming from the people who support Proposition 8 are that, how dare this activist judge overturn the will of the people? The people spoke in their votes and they don't want gay marriage and he has no right to come in and change that. I still can't understand how any rational person can honestly say that the public should be voting on people's rights. Um, if you believe so strongly in full-on democracy to the point where the public should decide everything, first of all, you wouldn't need a constitution because everything would just be decided by the will of the people, and you wouldn't need anything to regulate that. If this is your view, would you support, in following that line, going back and undoing the rulings that gave blacks and whites the rights to marry each other, gender equality, women having the right to vote? Yes, if you're a rational person, you probably think that this is a good thing that has happened, that we actually have this today. But this was not decided by a public vote. It was decided by the courts. This is why you have courts, because uh, America is a democracy, but it's more than that. It's a republic. So it is, of the people, by the people, for the people. But you have courts there to make sure that the will of the people does not trump the rights of individuals. As I said, if you didn't, if we just left everything up to democracy, there would be no reason to have courts. But we know that certain things are not left up to the people to decide. Um, Now, the people who just, I've read the entire ruling on Perry versus Schwarzenegger, which was the case about Proposition 8. And so, what is the basis of the claims that the people who support uh, Proposition 8 have put forward? So, basically, that marriage has always been defined as being between a man and a woman. This is not true, and they've brought this up in the court that culturally marriage has changed over time. But I want to read the official defense put forward from pages 6 through 7 of the judge's decision. Uh, this is what the people who supported Proposition 8 put forward. Proposition 8 is simple and straightforward. Proposition 8 is about preserving marriage. It is not an attack on the gay lifestyle. It protects our children from being taught in public schools that same-sex marriage is the same as traditional marriage. While death, divorce, or other circumstances may prevent the ideal, the best situation for a child is to be raised by a mother and father, a married mother and father. If the gay marriage ruling of California Supreme Court is not overturned, teachers could be required to teach young children there is no difference between gay marriage and traditional marriage. We should not accept a court decision that may result in public schools teaching our own kids that gay marriage is okay. While gays have the right to their private lives, they do not have the right to redefine marriage for everyone else. So the statement in itself is flawed uh, in terms of a legal defense, because like the campaign that for Proposition 8, which they spent millions and millions of dollars on, this proposition relies on existing prejudices about gay people, and this was actually brought up by the judge in the case. So what does it claim as the danger of allowing gay marriage? That if gay marriage is allowed, teachers could be required to teach young children there is no difference between gay marriage and traditional marriage. But it doesn't say what the harmful outcomes of this would be. It relies on this apparent general understanding from normal people that gay marriage is inferior and does not require an explanation or any kind of support. It's just, well, we know how horrible that would be without actually saying what the outcome would be. Um, Now, the closest thing the statement comes to giving a justification is that a married mother and father situation is the best environment for a child to be raised in. But this view is disputed greatly by the experts brought in, the plaintiffs in this case. The view is only supported by their own, the view that the proponents of Proposition 8 put forward is only supported by these apparent studies that their own organization have done. They are not researching peer-reviewed, scrutinized studies, independent studies. All of these groups that supported this proposition have their own religious and moral agenda, and so they create these studies to support that. They do not seek out independent studies that have been subjected to independent peer review. Now I want to read something from page 9 of the ruling. At oral argument on proponent's motion for summary judgment, the court posed to proponent's counsel the assumption that the state's interest in marriage is procreative, and inquired how permitting same-sex marriage impairs or adversely affects that interest. Counsel replied that the inquiry was not the legally relevant question, but when pressed for an answer, counsel replied, "Your Honor, my answer is, I don't know, I don't know." It would be impossible to go through every piece of the testimony. I'm not going to do that. It's 136 pages, so I'll just go through a few pieces of it here. But I really suggest you read the ruling yourself. So back to what I was talking about originally. How can anyone assert that the public should be voting on this in the first place? So what is the basis of the vote? What is the question? Should gay people be allowed to be legally married under the law and have the same rights afforded to heterosexual couples? Now, a public vote is not warranted here because a layperson who doesn't understand sociology, science, and history, doesn't have any credentials in this, is not qualified to decide something like this. Instead, they vote based on their own prejudices. And a person who has never read a study on homosexuality or met a gay person, with a vote, they can take rights away from somebody that they're not an expert on. They don't know whether it is natural in nature, or if it is something that is harmful to children. They only base it on their own prejudices. Now, the proponents of Proposition 8 appeal to that specific demographic, claiming that you don't need to have any expertise or have any education because all you need is common sense. And as I've said in other videos, this is a term that conservatives often throw around as a sort of blanket term, meaning that, I don't need anything other than my wonderful common sense, and all of your liberal education and all of your studies are just biased, but I have common sense, so that trumps everything. Even their official position that they entered into the court was based on the idea that the position is simple and straightforward. But human sexuality is not simple and straightforward. It's a complex subject that doesn't simply fall under common sense. And the plaintiffs in the case brought in numerous experts in the field of sexuality and sociology to present studies to support their claims. And the evidence presented on the other side was not subject to peer review, and as the judge put it, it just relied on bald assurance. And so the witnesses that were brought in were the two so-called experts that were brought in on the Proposition 8 side were found to be not valid. Something else from the judge's ruling here. Proponents elected not to call the majority of their designated witnesses to testify at trial, and called not a single official proponent of Proposition 8 to explain the discrepancies between the argument in favor of Proposition 8 presented to voters and the arguments presented in court. Proponents informed the court on the first day of trial, January 11th, that they were withdrawing Lauren Marks, Paul Nathanson, Daniel N. Robinson, and Catherine Young as witnesses. Proponents' counsel stated in court on Friday, January 15th, that their witnesses were extremely concerned about their personal safety and did not want to appear with any recording of any sort whatsoever. So the pro-equality, the gay marriage groups were really pushing to have the trial televised, or at least broadcast over the internet, because they believe so strongly that if people heard the testimony that they would understand why gay marriage should be legalized. It was not allowed. The judge did not allow it, so it wasn't broadcast. But the timeline shows, however, that proponents failed to make any effort to call their witnesses after the potential for public broadcast in the case had been eliminated. If you read page 38 of the ruling, you'll find information on David Blankenhorn, who was one of the people that was brought in to support the Proposition 8 side. He is, again, not an expert in the field. He doesn't have a degree in sociology or anything relevant to this. Now, there's a little write-up I found out about him here. Blankenhorn's book, Future of Marriage, presents views which were echoed in his testimony at the trial. During testimony, he stated, "I believe that adopting same-sex marriage would be likely to improve the well-being of gay and lesbian households and their children." And just a quick side note, so much of the claims talk about protecting children, but gay marriage does not bar gays and lesbians from adopting. So it's not the central focus here, and these proponents of Proposition 8 are trying to make it the central focus. But gay couples can adopt children under the law in California right now, so it's strange that they focus on this is the main point. And also, if you want to read the testimony or the findings from the other so-called expert, page 49 of the ruling is Kenneth Miller. As I said, both were found not to be credible witnesses. So now this case will go on to the Court of Appeals, likely the Supreme Court. They can choose not to take the case, they can turn it down, but there's a good chance it probably will go to there. So what is the outcome going to be? Obviously, we don't know what the outcome is going to be. It's going to be one way or the other, probably a very close vote. But in terms of what history tells us and what side should win and what side has the most validity, look at the YouTube channels on this issue. Now you have what are the tactics that they take? If you look out NOM Tracker, the National Organization for Marriage Tracker, or Equality on Trial, they're a group that follow around the National Organization for Marriage and a lot of the anti-gay marriage groups. And a huge portion of their videos are unedited speeches from supporters of Proposition 8, from the religious right, from the people who are against equality for gays and lesbians. They're filming them, they're interviewing them, they're asking them questions, and they're putting this stuff on their site. They're giving these people an unedited block of time to present their point of view. Now, what do the anti-equality groups do on their pages? They put their own propaganda, their PSAs on why gay marriage is wrong and why it will destroy the fabric of America, and footage of their own speeches from their rallies. But you don't see them going out and talking to pro-gay groups and people on the other side and asking them intelligent questions and trying to get them to present their point of view. And why do you think this is? It's because they don't have intelligent questions. They don't have anything that would convince people. All they can do is try to hide that segment and tell everyone what they should believe on this stuff. They don't have any rational basis for their argument other than their own prejudices. And they know that if they show these people that they might, people might garner some sympathy from the people that they're trying to convince. And so they just hold on to the hope that there are enough uneducated people out there that will believe them. And the people on the pro-equality side see that the sunlight is the best disinfectant. And I don't know where I don't know where that saying came from. Sunlight's really not the best disinfectant, but in this case it makes sense, so I'll use it. But if you listen to the anger coming from these people since the ruling, it's really telling of how desperate they are. If you listen to Maggie Gallagher, who's the woman, she's the president of the Institute for Marriage and Public Policy and the former president of the National Organization for Marriage. If you listen to her, she was on Anderson Cooper a few days ago, and she was claiming that the judge in this case was biased, and all of these sites are calling for his impeachment because they're angry. And when Anderson Cooper asked why he was biased, she says, "Well, I don't know why he's biased." And this is the level of argument this viewpoint has fallen to. Everyone else is biased because they don't agree with us, and so they don't have to present evidence or reason. So I think it's a good sign that the country is definitely moving in that direction for equality. And in the end, we know where it's going to go. As I say, in Canada, we've had gay marriage for years now. It's still issues. It's not like gay rights are not an issue here anymore. But the firecracker issue that was gay marriage is the sky hasn't fallen. Everyone's still alive, and people are happy. And the same thing's going to happen in America. It just may take some time. And to anyone unsure about their views on this, if you're on the fence about this, I really urge you, when it's an issue this big, take the time and read the judge's ruling. It is long, but you can skim through some parts of it if there's a lot of... But it presents everything so clearly, I don't see how a rational person cannot come to the same conclusion that the judge did. I'll put the link up accompanying this video so you can look at it, and just really take the time to look at it because it really presents how important this issue is. So I'm sure I'll do another video on this subject as things progress, but that's it for now, so thanks.